Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of The Buzz. We've got an exciting show coming up filled with insider tips and information on how to get a job. Stick around, you don't want to miss this episode. Hello and thank you for joining me this month on The Buzz. Today in studio we have two special guests, Albert Ares and Michelle Phillips from Career Source Polk, who are giving tips and sharing their own experience on landing a job in today's workforce. How are y'all doing today?
Oh, doing great.
Good. Thank you for being here today to talk to me about this. It's a huge topic that I think all college students really need a lot of help with, whether they realize it or not, because I know I did when I was a senior in college getting ready to look for a job. To start off, I just want to give the viewers a little bit of information on what Career Source Polk is. What do you guys strive to do?
So our goal is to really connect employers and job seekers together. So how we aim to do that is we have a platform called Employ Florida Marketplace, which is the state's official job search engine. And so with that, employers and job seekers can register for free, and then the employers can put in their job orders, is what we call their postings, and job seekers can then search for the job positions that are open and then apply for that internally within Employ Florida Marketplace.
Okay, so you guys are really helping out those people who need some help finding job opportunities in the area. On your background, I'd like to touch on your background briefly. How did you guys get involved with Career Source Polk, and what is it that each of you do within the company?
So I used to work in, my previous position was at the local Economic Development Council. So what Economic Development Councils do, or economic development is that it takes, we work with big organizations and try to attract them into the county. So we help Amazon and FedEx and Walmart kind of come in here. So when you hear about those expansions, usually the Economic Development Councils had a hand in that. So a big portion of economic development is workforce, because employers, what they're looking for, these big organizations, what they're looking for is when they come here, they better have, or they have to ensure that they have the workforce that they need. So for example, when Amazon came in here, they needed a lot of people that had that logistics experience, or at least people that they can train and have at least know a little bit about the systems that they use. So it was an easy transition for me going from the Economic Development Council to Career Source Polk, because it was a workforce. I've dealt with some of the key members here in the past, so it was an easy, seamless transition.
Great. And Michelle, how did you get involved with Career Source Polk?
Well, I first became aware of Career Source Polk when I had lost my position after 9/11. And due to the economy slowing, and I was on unemployment, and I ended up coming to the Career Center to use the computers and to look for jobs, as Albert had just mentioned, and eventually they ended up offering me a position there. And so now I have the opportunity to assist others the way I was assisted when I first came to the Career Center.
Absolutely. And you're pretty involved with resume building in your position. What is it that you do with Career Source Polk now?
Well, for more than 10 years, I've been the talent development trainer at our Lakeland office. Ashley Brungard is our Winter Haven trainer, and together we work with unemployed and underemployed individuals in a workshop setting. And some of the seminars that we cover include resume writing, critiquing, mock interviewing, and practice, and networking and job searching.
Great. So you're definitely a reputable source for this topic today that we're talking about with job hunting and resume building.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Awesome. So I know from my personal experience that when you're coming up on your end of junior, early senior year, and you're thinking about where do I want to work, how am I going to get there, that sort of thing, that's probably one of the scariest things about the college experience from my personal experience with it. So say that someone's just graduated from college, or they're just about to. How should they approach their job hunting experience? Where should they start?
A great place to start is obviously at our career centers. We have knowledgeable staff on hand at all times to walk everyone through any part of the interview process and more. A good place to start, though, personally, is to start listing transferable skills that they've gained both in college and from paid and unpaid positions, because that comes in handy when they start to begin to write their resume.
And also in our career centers, we have one in Lakeland and Winter Haven. We have a space that's dedicated that we call the Learning and Assessment Centers. And in the Learning and Assessment Centers, we have a test called the Career Scope.
Career Scope is really exciting because as staff members, we were required to take it when we first gained a position at CareerSource Polk. Okay. And it really gives you an idea if you're not really sure, but it pulls out your strengths and your talents and gives suggested career clusters or career industries you might work well in based on your knowledge base and your interest area. And so it gives a good place to start when you're exploring careers and interested in the career ladder and growth where you want to go in the future.
Definitely, and that's great because even sometimes if you go to school for a certain major or degree, you may not know exactly what aspect of that field you want to pursue.
Right.
I know with communications, there's a lot of different routes that I could have gone.
Right.
And I chose broadcasting, but I could have gone advertising, public relations, print, online, video. So it does help to have a resource that'll kind of help you hone that in. Mm-hmm. Now, Michelle, you talked earlier about a little bit about what kind of skills you can put on a resume. But if you don't have experience, say an internship or a previous job in the field, it's hard to build your resume to suit what you're trying to pursue. So can you elaborate a little bit on what you kind of touched on before with what kind of skills you can use to build up a resume and how you do that?
Well, a great place to start is to emphasize soft skills. These are things like showing up on time, being able to work well with others, or taking the initiative. And we're finding that these soft skills are things that employers don't necessarily train on. They can train you to do the job. And so when you can start addressing that you bring talent to the table and that you're willing to learn and you're willing to be trained, you can start to create a resume around those. And then of course include any unpaid volunteering type work, maybe with church or with a personal family member that you've worked with. And school accomplishments are a great way to start your resume.
Another way is for, if they can, they really want to get in their foot in the door. So what they want to get is an entry-level job or a part-time job. Because with entry-level jobs, usually don't need the work experience. You know, you just need, like what Michelle was saying, you just need to have talent. Or if an employer can see there's a potential in you, they will likely employ you. What we do offer the employers, however, to help at least help, students that are still have no work experience, is we offer this grant called the on-the-job training. So with the on-the-job training, what it can help an employer is that it can help subsidize an employee's wages until their probationary period.
Now let's talk about the form of a resume a little bit. I know, Michelle, in your position, you see a ton of resumes. Albert, I'm sure you've seen some yourself, and you've both written them yourselves. What are some of the most common mistakes that someone can make when they're building up their resume?
So the first thing I see is grammar errors. It's, you really gotta you can write a resume and you might think it's perfect, but you have to have at least a few set of other eyes that are looking at it, because you might not catch what they're gonna catch. And that is the resume is your first impression to an employer, because they don't even see you face to face, they first see your resume. So you want to make sure that's actually perfect and it's grammar free, because it does leave an impression when you do have mistakes on them.
Well, given that the employer has a lot of resumes to go through, really consolidating your information to just highlights of accomplishments, achievements, less is more. And so they don't want to read a novel, they just want the highlights. I like to use the analogy of a trailer. To a movie that you would go to watch, you would want to see the trailer, and that just is a little bit of information. It's not chronological, it's highlights. And so if you can highlight the best about you on the page, then the employer wants to call you in, and that's the movie where you get a chance to elaborate on your plot and all the things that you did to make that movie the great and wonderful movie that it is.
And I've been told before, and I want to ask you guys for your expertise, is a one-page resume a good rule of thumb? Because that's what I was taught, but I don't know, is there any variance on that rule?
Well, there are some exceptions. If someone is writing a curriculum vitae, it's a different animal. So a resume is good to have one page because you already have a cover letter, so now you have 2 pieces of paper, plus the application, which is often multi-pages. And so if the employer is really interested, if you had multiple years of experience, if you're going for academic fields such as a professor, then maybe a multi-page resume is appropriate, maybe 2. But most employers say they won't go past 1 page.
Right.
So you got to really capture their attention on the first page.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like Albert said, it's the
Yeah.
first impression. You have to catch them fast because they only have so much time in their day, right?
Exactly.
So they're not going to spend a ton of time looking at one particular resume in a big stack.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to ask you too, before we take a quick break, in the older fashioned resumes, even in the classes that I took about resume building, they would say, you know, an objective is kind of an old fashioned thing, but you can include it. Maybe some people don't like it. Is there a preference on that, or should it be straight your skills and your experience?
Well, you want an introduction. And so what is being taught now, and I always say that it's important that you're current.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like using a pager in today's smartphone universe. You need to be current with technology. And so to be current, what they're looking for is sort of like a headline. So you do have your skills and you do have your accomplishments, but they need to know where it's going. So a headline or billboard is just 1 or 2, 2 to 3 lines. So a headline or a billboard is 2 to 3 lines that gives an overview of your work experience, maybe the years in the industry, something unique about yourself, which is known as a slogan statement, and maybe a highlighted accomplishment that really shows your work ethic or work style. And that way they at least know what direction your resume is going to go. Regardless of the field of interest, it tells a little bit about you.
Great. Well, we're going to take a quick break, but make sure you stay tuned for more advice from Albert and Michelle. We'll be right back.
I've been coming to the Farmers Curd Market for about 10 years now. I love the fresh produce, plants, the variety of artists and craftsmen. There's a lot of amazing local talent.
For me, it's about buying local and supporting my neighbor. It's the camaraderie, the families, I see friends and neighbors. I see a thriving community, and I know I'm a part of making that happen.
Join us on Saturdays at the downtown Lakeland Farmers Curd Market. Your community, locally grown.
It's about putting others first. It's doing your best at whatever you do. It's about being honest with yourself, with everything. It's all of these. It's more. It's commitment. This message is brought to you by the U.S. Air Force.
The inherent right to work is one of the elemental privileges of a free people. Endowed, as our nation is, with abundant physical resources, and inspired as it should be to make those resources and opportunities available for the enjoyment of all, we approach reemployment with the real hope of finding a better answer than we have now.
Donate to Goodwill, where your donations help fund job placement and training for people in your community.
Take responsibility for your actions, because you're not the only one affected by a DUI.
Airman Clark, can you hand me that wrench?
Yeah, man, we'll be out. All right, thanks. Hey, Airman Clark, can you go show that tug back?
Don't let a DUI take you out of the picture. There's no rewind in real life. Have a plan.
Hey, Rob. Hey, I want to have a few beers tonight. You mind picking me up later? Thanks.
History tells us that a lack of hurricane awareness and preparation are common threads among all major disasters.
By knowing your vulnerability and what actions you should take, you can reduce the effects of a hurricane disaster.
Hurricane hazards come in many forms, and preparation is the best protection against the dangers of a hurricane. Knowing the difference between threat levels and then planning accordingly can help you in recovery.
This hurricane season, have a plan and get your supplies together. Or you can do nothing.
As part of the University of Florida IFAS Extension, Polk County offers the latest research-based information packaged in a way that makes it easy to use. It's like going to the university without leaving home. Through Extension, Polk County residents find answers to both common and difficult issues in a diversity of topic areas. From lowering doctor visit frequency through better nutrition, to planting a low water use Florida yard, to protecting commercial fruit operations from pests and diseases. Find a place for your children to stay safe and build their confidence through the 4-H program, or get a license to spray chemicals as a service for your small lawn and landscape business. More than 500 Polk County youth and adults volunteer with Extension each year as 4-H club leaders and as certified master gardeners. As a resident of Polk County, I hope you'll use the opportunities through the Extension service to learn more to apply to your life, home, business, and community.
Welcome back to The Buzz. In case you're just tuning in, I have Albert Erez and Michelle Phillips from CareerSource Polk here in the studio talking about landing your first job. So before the break, we talked a lot about resume building. We're going to talk now a little bit about landing that first job. Say that a job hunter, whether it be a recent graduate or someone who's already been in the workforce that's changing career paths or just changing jobs, they've landed an interview now. What are the top tips that you guys have for preparing for that interview?
So 2 things, rehearse and research. So you know that there's going to be a list of common questions that employers usually ask in interviews. And actually, if you go to our career centers, we do have that list. But what you want to do is you want to rehearse all the answers that you're going to say when they ask you the common questions. Like, for example, can you tell me more about yourself? So what the employer is really trying to get with at least that question is they're trying to understand how your skill sets and what you offer can be integrated with what responsibilities you'll be taking on if you get this position. So if you know what position you're going for and what responsibilities you know you will be in charge of, you want to make sure that's a common question that you want to answer and make sure you kind of rehearse that a lot so that when you come into the interview, you're a little bit more confident. The other thing is that a lot of employers are also looking to see if you actually know about them. So when I see research, you want to make sure when you get that interview to at least look up what the employer is all about and be prepared, because those are the questions they're going to ask. Most of the questions they're going to ask is kind of probing to see if you actually know about them.
Definitely. And you want to know all about your employer that you're going to interview with, because you want to know their values and what they represent, so that you know that you're representing yourself as a fit for them, because that's one of the biggest things, I think. Now, if you guys go into an interview, you're kind of able to sell yourself, show your personality and all of those things. But sometimes if it's someone that's not necessarily located near you or something like that, you'll have a Skype interview or a phone interview or something of that nature. What are some tips that you guys have for how to properly sell yourself on a phone interview and communicate your personality and that sort of thing?
My tip is to smile, because if you're smiling, it really shines through, whether they're not seeing you on phone or they're seeing you still on, Skype. But when you smile, you do put a positive image on yourself, and that really resonates to an employer.
Another good tip is to have a folder prepared in advance with a copy of a resume, recent job logs, job search logs, pen, paper. That way you don't fumble for those items while you're on the phone.
Absolutely. Now, if someone is in an interview, we're all bound to make some mistakes, whether it be big ones, little ones, whatever. What are some typical mistakes that an interviewee can make, and how can they prepare to avoid them?
Well, one of the common mistakes is oversharing.
Okay.
While honesty may lead someone to feel that a tell-all is appropriate, a lack of a filter can be seen as undesirable to a lot of employers. So it's helpful to stay professional and realize that you're there already working. If you look at it from a work perspective, we don't bring our family to the workplace. We don't talk about our personal concerns at home. And so keeping it professional is one of the biggest tips I give my job seekers anywhere.
Absolutely.
My tip is to make sure your phone is at least on vibrate. Don't answer it, and don't chew gum.
Okay.
So just things that, you know, like an employer might find that like just not appropriate for an interview.
Yeah, all good tips.
Yeah.
And they all kind of fall in with be professional.
Yeah.
You know, keep it all professional, whether it be in your sharing or in your etiquette, I guess
Yeah.
you could say. Now, I've talked a lot about recent graduates and that sort of thing, but you're not always looking for a job with a college degree. That's not always the case. Say that someone doesn't have a college degree and they're going to apply for a job. How should they approach the job search, and how can they stand out amongst people who may have a degree against them?
Well, in today's ever-changing marketplace, continuing education is really important. However, a good place to start is to show a willingness to learn and a willingness to be trained, because then the employer can train you from there. And then, of course, what Albert had mentioned earlier about the career ladder and career exploration. So, for example, if you're aware that you want to go into human resources, we'll use that as an example, and that requires a 4-year degree. You could start out by looking at the career ladder and discovering that an entry-level position in an office position would be a great place to start. Then look for promotion opportunities on the job. While you're gaining valuable, relevant experience, you're also increasing your salary base, which can help pay for education, take advantage of employer-sponsored training programs, and of course the WIOA program can also help. And I'll let Albert explain a little bit about WIOA.
So the WIOA is what is called the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act. And so it's a grant that we fund over at our career centers, and it really helps when someone really wants to get that job, but it needs to have a little bit of credentials, maybe a degree. It's a program that we provide, and it helps to pay up, we assist up to 12 months of education/training for an individual. The only caveat is that they have to make sure they pick an occupation that is in our regional occupation demand target list, and that you can find on our website. 3 fields that I'm seeing that we really need right now in Polk County is healthcare, education, and informational technology, or IT. So if you're interested, if someone's interested in getting like credentials or getting training for that, to get an opportunity, as Michelle said, to climb up the career ladder or just get in their foot in the door, we can assist.
Absolutely. So it's really important for people to know that there is an opportunity to kind of climb like that, because a lot of times it's a little discouraging to look at a job and say, oh, I can't get that job, I can't get in. So that's nice to hear that there is that opportunity. Now, I know that you guys are both pretty successful now in what you're doing. I'd like to go back, take it back for you guys, for the viewers to see where you guys came from. What was your first job? How did you guys get your foot in the door and kind of climb your way up?
Well, my first job was as a hostess and server at a local steak restaurant. I was doing that during high school in the summertime. And one of the things I learned about that job was that success really comes as a team effort. Being able to share successes with your coworkers and, you know, helping each other out makes work a lot more fun. And I realized that customer service is really something that's important to anyone, regardless of their role or position.
So my first job was, I was an English tutor for my local high school. And it was actually a partnership while I was a junior in high school, and I was tutoring my classmates, and it was a little awkward at first. But what it really taught me about jobs and whatnot is that you really have to like your job, because I really enjoyed, like, even though it was you know, mentoring my classmates, it was still, you know, like, it was enjoyable because it didn't seem like I was, you know, like, it was just like more like a peer kind of tutoring rather than you were the teacher and they were the student. So you really got to like the job, and that's what it just taught me. It's like, you know, if you want to go, your dream job has to be that job, or at least the job that you want to pick is something that you like to do.
I know that I had to do a couple of retail jobs throughout college and high school, and there were a few of them that I was not in love with, and it was really hard to kind of motivate yourself to want to excel at it. And once you find the one that you really do enjoy, it makes it that much easier to do well in your job. So that's always definitely important. Now, being that you guys have started at those lower levels and you've worked your way up through, you've done plenty of interviewing yourselves. Albert kind of touched on it earlier, but Michelle, do you have any particular tips about going into an interview and presenting yourself and that sort of thing?
Absolutely. A lot of people are good at their jobs because they do it every day. But how often did you interview for your last job? And so because of that, a lot of people find they're nervous and they're like, just let me do the job and I can do the job. So since you know that 50% of that interview is going to be about what you can do, that's something you can prepare in advance. And of course, practice makes perfect, literally. We do our jobs every day. And so that's why we're good at what we do. But another thing is that when we start off with the beginning of the interview question, I know a lot of people get nervous about tell me about yourself. Remember, the whole interview is about your work experience. So don't start blasting them with your work experience at the front. Instead, tell them a little bit about what you do as an overview, like maybe the years of experience, and then maybe something you enjoy in your free time, as well as your career focus. So I like to start with about where they live, a little bit about what they do in their free time, and what kind of work they're looking for to kind of break the ice and get comfortable in the interview.
Yeah, and that's super important because when you said that, I thought to myself, where do you start? Tell me about yourself. That's so broad. So for people to have kind of a guideline of what they should tell without oversharing, like you said earlier, that's definitely important because it's kind of a difficult question to know how to answer.
Absolutely, and keep in mind that at our career centers, that's part of what we do for the training, is we sit down and in the mock interviews, we have a chance to practice that until they're comfortable. And so they're getting some, right away they're getting immediate feedback from their peers and the instructor or trainer that's in the class.
That's great. And how do you guys do mock interviews? Because I did one in college, and is it a professional comes in, does an interview, and then gives you like a score sheet or something like that? Because that's how we did it. But how do yours work?
Well, our mock interviews are over 2 days. So first they get the core skills on how to answer the questions, a chance to practice them, and then we do a round table. What's very popular today is panel interviews. And so having more than one person in the room is a little bit more nerve-wracking. Where do you look? You know, who do you talk to first? And navigating that. And so we actually do a round table interview and then immediate feedback. And this gives each person in the workshop an opportunity to play both the role of employer and employee. And when they're in the role of employer, they get to see some of the negatives that they wouldn't have seen otherwise, because a lot of people are really comfortable playing a boss. So
that's definitely interesting, because I know when I had to do mine in college, I was terrified. But once you get in there and you get in that groove, the more you do it, definitely the more comfortable you get. So that's a great skill that you guys offer, or a great feature, I should say, with the mock interviews. It's definitely important to gain all of that experience, that the actual interview, when it comes time, kind of becomes second nature for them. So if someone wants to get in touch with you guys and take advantage of your features that you guys offer, how do they get in touch with Albert or Michelle at CareerSource Polk and get involved with that?
Well, since we have offices in Lakeland and Winter Haven, the best way is to go to our website, www.careersourcepolk.com. And all of our services are listed there. And the best thing about it is all of the services are free.
That's excellent.
Yes.
That's the best part for sure.
So we'd like to invite anyone out to come down and check us out.
Great. Well, I want to thank you guys for being here. You guys offered a ton of useful information. I hope our viewers are able to pull from that and hopefully land their big interviews, because graduation's coming up in a couple months for all those college students out there.
Yes.
So thank you guys.
Thank you.
That's all the time we have for today. If you missed any of this episode, you can catch replays on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 1 and 7 p.m. on PGTV, or find us on our Polk Government YouTube page. Thank you for joining me on The Buzz. I'll see you next time.